not racist, but when I walked out onto this stage, what did you see? Who did you see? Did you see my colour, my background, my race, my ethnicity? First, how curious and open-minded are you right now? What judgments or assumptions do you have about perceived differences or even similarities? Jane Elliott said, "You are not born racist. You are born into a racist society, and just like everything else, if you can learn something, you can also unlearn it too." Let's be open and honest and explore this. How prepared are you to be open-minded about racism? What if I claimed that everybody is racist at some point in their lives? Have any of you ever said, "I'm not racist, but," or heard somebody else say this? Ash is British Asian. He lives in a small town and works 9 to 5 in an office job. He kicks a football around at the weekends, and he's got lots of South Asian friends, people from Bangladesh, from Pakistan, from India. They get along great until it's cricket season. And then the torrent of offensive abuse lets loose. Ash is really passionate about cricket and really supports his team. He gets involved. Ash isn't racist, but as an Irishman, John has got lots of friends from lots of different ethnic backgrounds. He finds them as nice and as pleasant as anybody from anywhere else. In fact, John really hates anybody who is racially prejudiced. John isn't racist, but John finds it difficult to accept Middle Eastern communities because of what he sees in the news. Jenny's Black African. Jenny's a real defender of justice. She's a human rights activist. She's at all the protest marches. Jenny's not racist, but sometimes Jenny finds it hard. She finds it hard to like people from her own community, her own diaspora. Meet Joe. Joe thinks that people who come to live in the UK should adopt British customs and dress. He just doesn't want Britain to lose its heritage. He shares these views behind closed doors with his close family and friends, but he doesn't express them in public. Joe's not racist. In fact, Joe really supports refugees coming and fleeing safety to the UK. Well, some refugees. He accepts those refugees because he really wants to help them. Their humanity is visible to him. You see, they look like him and they dress like him. I come from a minority Muslim caste system. I came to the UK as a child in the early 70s. I was raised in a multicultural city, Manchester, in a small park called Moss Side. I didn't meet my mother until I was in my early 20s. Instead, I was taken under the wing of a dedicated, humane, compassionate woman with beautiful dreadlocks, if you want to picture her. She'd take me camping every year to Lake Silverdale with the local youth group, and she was fiercely protective. We'd have fish and chips on a Wednesday, and she talked to me. She talked to me about the world, about life, about justice. She explained to me the importance of raising a voice for humanity and taking action to help others. I called her my mother. I still do. I see her for the amazing human being that she is. She is a strong black woman. I respect her colour, and yet, if I was to describe her to you, I would talk about her character, her values, her heart first. I experienced life against the stigma, a background of stigma and cultural walls of negativity across various communities. I didn't always belong in one place. How many of us do? And does experiencing racism in any form make this even harder? I dreaded the National Front protests a stone's throw from my bedroom window. As a child growing up in the 70s and 80s, I didn't understand why. Today, as an adult, I still don't understand the hatred. My father worked hard to raise 3 daughters alone in a country that he came to with just a few pennies in his pocket to earn an honest and humble living. He left his family, he left his country because he was invited here to help. And he brought with him his ethics and his values. He didn't come here to take. He came here to give, and yet he experienced countless acts of racism from those who chose hate. We lived in a small house on a sandwich street, often overpowered by the pungent smell of yeast and hops coming from the Harp Lager factory on the corner. Over the road lived Auntie Jean and Uncle Peter, an Irish Catholic couple. Auntie Jean was really tall. She had big blonde bouffant hair. She had heaps of blue eyeshadow and she smoked like a trooper. In fact, she swore like a trooper too. Probably why Uncle Peter didn't have a single hair left on his head. Next door lived Mr. and Mrs. Rogers, a Jamaican couple staunch in Christian faith. Sometimes they'd take me to church with them, and I'd wear a nice dress and I'd sing hymns at the top of my voice. Happy memories. I want you to imagine Mr. Rogers stood in the middle of a mosque with the Muslim congregation. Stood in the middle of the mosque with the congregation gathering to pay their last respects. Gathering to pay their last respects at my father's funeral. Mr. Rogers raised his hands and he said, "Show me how you pray. Show me how to pray." And that day, Mr. Rogers proceeded to join the Muslim congregation in the funeral prayer in honor of my father's memory. Why is this moment so significant? Why does it matter? Why is it so touching that that day he crossed his faith boundary in the name of friendship? This was the love and the sincerity he shared with my father, his neighbor, his brother, his friend. Martin Luther King said, "Men hate each other because they fear each other. And they fear each other because they don't know each other. And they don't know each other because often they are separated from each other." Mr. Rogers was not a Muslim man. We were not a Christian family, but this was our community. We were more than neighbours. We were family. And why do I share this story with you today? The idea of race and equality is often centred on rules and regulations. Uncle Peter, Mr. Rogers, my father, they didn't have rules. They weren't separated by race, religion, colour, background. They were connected by a common humanity that saw the similarities and the good in others and let them into their lives. There were no consequences for them to fear. There were no barriers to their unity. Their driving force was love. And this unity, this harmony, this kinship was the bedrock of my childhood, which brought us together in such a beautiful way. Racism isn't just a construction. Racism isn't simply a theory. Racism is a reality. Racism is a reality that exists, that we can't ignore just because we think we don't experience it and so it doesn't affect us. It seeps into the very tapestry of society and communities, and the ripple effects have consequences, affecting so many lives. This matters. We all have our buts. How many of you have ever started a sentence with, "Oh, I'm not being funny, but I don't mean to offend you, but," or, "I'm not being racist, but," we all have these buts. To a greater or a lesser degree, these prejudices, conscious or unconscious, and eventually they make themselves known, they come to the surface. And at that point, we can either push them away, pretend they don't exist, or we can allow them to surface. We can face them, we can question them, and we can challenge them. Otherwise, they simply fester and grow, creating high walls and barriers instead of building bridges to connect humanity. How often do these buts influence our decisions, our engagements, our choices, when we take personal responsibility for our attitude, our thoughts, our words, our assumptions, and then subsequent behaviours? Something changes. Something shifts. What can we do? We can present a curious mind. Be open to the essential similarities in the human condition. We can do some soul searching. We have to understand our own racism before we can take action. I want us to think about race, not with fear, but with curiosity. We must acknowledge our own contribution in perpetuating the cycle of racial discrimination. I want us to be passionate in self-reflection, to be open to understanding and see beyond colour so that we can accept, embrace, and respect racial diversity. And what about the phrase, it's them, it's not us? Well, who are they? Those people over there, the racist ones, they're racist, not me. I'm not racist. But, well, what if there is no them? What if it's us? We often close in and break off into our own tribes. We're passionate and, with great feeling we claim, I'm patriotic. I'm deeply loyal to my own. When we make these statements, do we consider the impact they have on other people? Do we consider if they include somebody or if they exclude somebody? Are they fair? Are these policies fair? Do they discriminate against a group, a community, an individual? Do they harm somebody? There is no them. This is us. Why can't it be we? Why can't we have allyship? And why now? The death of George Floyd has been brought into significant focus the extent of racial disparities. We're having the important conversation around race and related concepts, allyship, racism, white privilege, Black Lives Matter. We have to talk about race equality Because race inequality exists. It can only change with us. I want to challenge the thinking that being anti-racist is good enough. I suggest that we are actively anti-racist. We have to come at race equality from a place of loving kindness because we are committed to fairness and inclusion, not because the law says so. In the end, in the words of Harper Lee, I think there's just one kind of folks. Folks, I'm just looking for some everyday kindness and respect. We must commit to a curious mind. We must go all in, 360 degrees, full circle, grab a mind shovel and dig. For unity in humanity to be achieved, we must consider how we judge, what we believe, what we see. Let's refresh our minds. And this starts with taking a truth pill. How many of you have conversations behind closed doors that you would never repeat in public? We have to go right inside to make a difference on the outside. I'm not racist, but think twice and ask why. My call to action is a call for humanity. It's time for racial reckoning.